Reaching 70 is a significant milestone, a time to reflect on life, embrace new priorities, and let go of habits that no longer serve us. When I turned 70, I made a conscious effort to reassess my lifestyle. I realized that holding on to certain patterns or behaviors from my younger years wasn't bringing me happiness or peace. So, I decided to make some changes. Here are 5 things I've stopped doing after turning 70, and they've made a world of difference in my life. I hope these insights resonate with you, whether you're in your late 60s, 70s, or beyond. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. I don't worry about what others think of me. Turning 70 has brought clarity about what truly matters in life and what doesn't. One of the most liberating changes I've embraced is letting go of the weight of others' opinions. For decades, I allowed myself to be influenced by what people thought of me. I worried about my appearance, my choices, and how I was perceived in social situations. But as I've grown older, I've realized that chasing approval from others is like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips away, no matter how tightly you grasp. Here's the truth. No matter what you do, people will always have opinions. They'll judge how you look, how you live, and even how you age. But those opinions say far more about the person giving them than they ever will about you. When I was younger, I felt an unspoken pressure to measure up, at work, among friends, and even with family. I wanted to be seen as successful, competent, and put together. But now, I see how draining that was. Why should I waste my energy worrying about whether someone approves of how I dress or how I spend my time? One moment stands out in my memory. A few years ago, at a family gathering, someone commented on how I had let myself go because I wasn't dyeing my hair anymore. In the past, a comment like that would have stung. I might have rushed to a salon the next day to cover up my grays. But that day, I simply smiled and said, "This is me. Take it or leave it." And I meant it. Those gray strands are part of my story, representing the wisdom, challenges, and experiences that have shaped who I am today. This shift in mindset doesn't mean I've stopped caring altogether. It means I've stopped worrying. I care deeply about the people I love and the relationships that matter to me. But I no longer lose sleep over the opinions of acquaintances, strangers, or even family members who don't understand my choices. What's more, I've discovered that worrying about others' opinions often robs us of joy. How many times have we hesitated to do something we love because we're afraid of what people might say? Maybe you've wanted to wear a bold outfit, start a new hobby, or share your opinion, but held back because of fear of judgment. I've been there too. But now, I refuse to let those fears hold me back. Life is too short to live for someone else's approval. Letting go of this worry has brought me a deep sense of peace. I'm more present in my daily life because I'm no longer preoccupied with what others might think. I laugh louder, dress more comfortably, and embrace my imperfections without apology. Whether it's a chipped tooth or a wrinkle on my face, these so-called flaws are badges of a life well lived. One of the most beautiful things about aging is the freedom it brings. With every passing year, I care less about fitting into society's expectations and more about living authentically. After all, I've spent 70 years navigating the highs and lows of life. I've earned the right to be myself without explanation. So, if there's one piece of advice I'd share with anyone approaching their 70s, it's this. Stop worrying about what others think. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's opinion. Wear what makes you happy, speak your truth, and live in a way that feels right to you. You've spent decades taking care of everyone else. Now it's time to take care of yourself. 2. I don't tolerate negative or toxic people. One of the greatest gifts I've given myself after turning 70 is the permission to step away from negativity and toxic people. When you're young, you often feel an obligation to endure difficult relationships, whether it's for work, family, or friendships. But after living through 7 decades, I've learned an invaluable truth. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every person deserves space in your life. I used to think that tolerance was a virtue, that putting up with unpleasant people was just part of being a good person. Whether it was dealing with a demanding coworker, a critical friend, or even a relative who never had a kind word to say, I convinced myself it was my responsibility to keep the peace. But the truth is, constantly tolerating toxic behavior drains your energy and steals your joy. At this stage in life, I've realized that my energy is too precious to waste on negativity. Now, that doesn't mean I cut people out of my life without thought or reason. But I've become much more intentional about the kind of relationships I nurture. If someone consistently brings negativity into my life, whether it's through constant criticism, unnecessary drama, or an inability to respect boundaries, I step back. One experience that stands out for me is a friendship I had with someone I'd known for decades. We had shared a lot of good times, but over the years, our relationship began to feel one-sided. Every conversation was filled with complaints and comparisons, and I left each interaction feeling drained. For a long time, I told myself that loyalty meant sticking it out. But as I approached 70, I started to question that belief. Was I really doing either of us a favor by holding on to a friendship that no longer brought joy or support? Eventually, I made the difficult decision to distance myself. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And you know what? Letting go created space in my life for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Sometimes, walking away is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Another area where I've set boundaries is within my family. Like many people my age, I've dealt with family dynamics that aren't always easy. While I'll always love my family, I've realized that love doesn't mean tolerating behavior that harms your well-being. If a family member is repeatedly disrespectful or dismissive, I address it with kindness, but firmness. And if the behavior doesn't change, I allow myself to step back emotionally. Setting these boundaries has been transformative. It's allowed me to focus on the relationships that truly matter, the ones that uplift and energize me. My grandchildren, for example, bring so much light into my life. Spending time with them reminds me of the joy and innocence that life can hold, a stark contrast to the weight of toxic interactions. I've also learned that the way people treat you often has more to do with them than with you. Toxic behavior is usually a reflection of someone's own pain, insecurities, or frustrations. While I have compassion for that, I no longer feel the need to absorb it. My role isn't to fix or endure someone else's negativity. I've earned the right to protect my peace. In distancing myself from toxic people, I've found a newfound appreciation for the beauty of solitude. Spending time alone no longer feels lonely. It feels like a gift. Whether I'm reading a book, taking a quiet walk, or simply sitting with my thoughts, I cherish the moments when I'm free from negativity. These quiet times allow me to reconnect with myself and recharge. If you're nearing 70 or already there, I encourage you to reflect on the relationships in your life. Are they bringing you joy, support, and connection? Or are they weighing you down with negativity? It's not always easy to make changes, but it's worth it. Every day is a gift, and you deserve to spend it surrounded by love and positivity, not by people who drain your spirit. In the end, letting go of toxic people isn't about anger or resentment. It's about choosing peace. And at this stage in life, peace is one of the most precious things we can cultivate. 3. I don't have unrealistic expectations of others. As I've entered my 70s, one of the most important lessons I've learned is to let go of unrealistic expectations of others. For much of my life, I held people to high standards. I expected punctuality, reliability, thoughtfulness, and a level of understanding that, frankly, not everyone is capable of giving. I believed that if I could meet those expectations myself, others should too. But with age comes wisdom, and I've come to realize that holding on to those expectations only creates frustration, disappointment, and sometimes unnecessary conflict. The truth is, people are who they are. Some are compassionate and considerate, while others may be forgetful, self-centered, or even oblivious to the impact of their actions. Trying to change people or expecting them to meet your idea of what they should be is not only futile, it's exhausting. After 70, I've decided that my energy is far too valuable to waste on being disappointed by unmet expectations. I remember a time when I would get upset if a family member forgot my birthday or didn't call when they said they would. It wasn't about the missed gesture itself. It was about what it represented to me. I thought, if they cared, they would remember. But as I've grown older, I've realized that life is complicated for everyone. People get busy, distracted, or overwhelmed, and it doesn't always mean they don't care. Sometimes, it's just life happening. Holding on to resentment only hurts you, not them. Now, I've made a conscious effort to approach my relationships with a sense of acceptance rather than expectation. I've stopped assuming that people will behave a certain way or meet a specific standard. Instead, I try to meet them where they are and appreciate them for who they are, not who I wish they would be. This shift has been liberating. It doesn't mean I've lowered my standards or stopped valuing meaningful connections. It simply means I no longer let others' actions or inactions dictate my emotional state. If someone doesn't call when I expect them to, I don't dwell on it. If they show up late or forget something important, I remind myself that their imperfections don't diminish the good qualities they bring to my life. That's not to say it's always easy. There are still moments when I feel a pang of disappointment, especially with those closest to me. But instead of letting that disappointment fester, I remind myself that forgiveness and understanding are far more valuable than harboring resentment. Holding grudges only builds walls, and at this stage in life, I'd rather build bridges. Interestingly, letting go of unrealistic expectations has also improved the way I see myself. For years, I held myself to impossibly high standards. I expected to be the perfect parent, friend, partner, and worker. I thought that if I wasn't constantly meeting those expectations, I was failing. But now, I extend the same grace to myself that I've learned to extend to others. I've come to embrace the fact that none of us are perfect. We're all just doing the best we can with what we have. One of the most beautiful results of this change is that my relationships have become more authentic. By letting go of expectations, I've created space for people to show up as their true selves, flaws, and all. In turn, they feel more comfortable around me. It's amazing how much stronger and deeper connections can become when you stop trying to mold them into something they're not. That said, I've also learned the importance of setting healthy boundaries. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean accepting disrespect or mistreatment. If someone repeatedly crosses a line, I address it with honesty and compassion. And if necessary, I distance myself. The key is finding a balance, understanding that people aren't perfect, but also knowing when to protect your own well-being. Now I approach each day with a lighter heart. I don't carry the weight of disappointment over things I can't control. I've realized that happiness doesn't come from others meeting my expectations. It comes from appreciating the moments of connection, kindness, and joy that life offers, however imperfectly. To anyone reading this who may struggle with letting go of expectations, I encourage you to try it. It's not about giving up on people. It's about giving yourself the gift of peace. When you stop expecting others to be something they're not, you open the door to acceptance, understanding, and even gratitude. And at the end of the day, that's what makes life truly fulfilling. 4. I don't set complex or overwhelming goals. For much of my life, I was a planner. I had lists, spreadsheets, calendars, and vision boards mapping out my next steps. I set goals for everything: work, family, personal growth, and even hobbies. My days were defined by to-do lists, deadlines, and an endless pursuit of accomplishment. Back then, it seemed necessary. Goals gave me direction and a sense of purpose, and achieving them brought satisfaction. But now that I've entered my 70s, I've realized something profound. Life doesn't need to be a constant race toward the next achievement. One of the most liberating changes I've made is letting go of the need to set complex long-term goals. I no longer wake up each day feeling like I have to conquer the world or tick every box on a list. Instead, I focus on smaller, simpler intentions that feel meaningful in the moment. And the result? A greater sense of peace and contentment than I have ever known. In my younger years, I believed that success was tied to how much I accomplished. I had 5-year plans, career milestones, and personal projects I tracked religiously. But over time, I noticed something troubling. The more I achieved, the less satisfied I felt. It seemed there was always another goal waiting around the corner, demanding my attention and energy. The cycle was endless, and I rarely took the time to appreciate what I had already accomplished. As I've aged, I've come to understand that the constant pursuit of goals can rob us of the ability to live fully in the present. Life becomes a checklist instead of a journey. At 70, I'm no longer interested in chasing lofty, complicated goals that may or may not bring happiness. Instead, I prioritize what feels right in the here and now. For example, instead of saying, I want to lose 20 pounds this year, I focus on smaller actions that contribute to my overall well-being, like taking a daily walk or preparing a healthy meal. Instead of setting a grand goal like traveling to 5 countries, I might simply plan a day trip to a nearby town or enjoy exploring my own backyard. These smaller intentions are manageable, flexible, and most importantly, aligned with the life I want to live today, not a year from now. This doesn't mean I've given up on dreams or stopped planning altogether. It means I've shifted my perspective. My goals are no longer about proving something to myself or others. They're about creating moments of joy and fulfillment. 5. I don't try to stay busy, just for the sake of being busy. For much of my life, I thought staying busy was a sign of productivity, purpose, and even worth. I filled my days with tasks, appointments, and commitments, believing that if I wasn't doing something, I was somehow wasting time. But after turning 70, I've realized something profound. Staying busy for the sake of being busy doesn't add meaning to your life. It takes away from it. When I reflect on my earlier years, I see how much of my time was spent trying to do it all. I juggled work responsibilities, family obligations, and social engagements, often feeling like I was spinning plates in the air. Even in retirement, I initially carried this mindset with me. I filled my calendar with activities, from joining clubs to volunteering for multiple organizations, thinking that the busier I was, the more fulfilled I would feel. But over time, I began to notice something unsettling. Instead of feeling content, I often felt tired, stressed, and strangely unfulfilled. It was as if I was moving through life on autopilot, checking off boxes without truly experiencing the moments that mattered. That's when I realized busyness is not the same as purpose. Now, at 70, I've embraced a slower, more intentional way of living. I no longer feel the need to pack my days with endless activities or to justify my time with productivity. Instead, I've learned to listen to myself, my energy, my emotions, and my needs. Some days, I feel motivated and energized, ready to tackle a project or spend time with friends. Other days, I wake up and simply want to rest, read a book, or sit quietly in my garden. And you know what? That's okay. Letting go of the need to stay busy has taught me the importance of presence. When I was constantly rushing from one thing to the next, I rarely had time to pause and appreciate the beauty of the world around me. Now, I find joy in the simplest moments: a morning cup of coffee, the laughter of my grandchildren, the way sunlight filters through the trees. These moments may seem small, but they hold a depth of meaning that I often overlooked when I was too busy to notice. Of course, there's a balance to be struck. I'm not advocating for complete inactivity. Staying engaged with life is essential for both physical and mental health. But the key is to engage in activities that genuinely bring you joy, not just those that fill your time. For me, this means taking long walks, tending to my garden, and working on creative projects like writing or painting. These activities aren't about productivity. They're about connection, creativity, and peace. One of the most significant shifts I've made is letting go of the guilt that often accompanies rest. In our culture, there's an unspoken pressure to always be doing something. Resting or taking a day to simply be can feel indulgent, even lazy. But I've come to understand that rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's in those moments of stillness that we recharge, reflect, and reconnect with ourselves. I've also noticed that slowing down has improved my relationships. When I'm not rushing through my day, I have more time to truly connect with the people I care about. Whether it's a leisurely phone call with an old friend or an unhurried afternoon with my family, these moments of connection are far more meaningful than any task I could check off a list. Another thing I've let go of is the pressure to join every group, club, or activity that comes my way. In my earlier retirement years, I felt the need to say yes to everything: social clubs, volunteering opportunities, exercise classes. But I've learned that saying no is just as important as saying yes. By being selective about how I spend my time, I can focus on the things that truly matter to me, rather than stretching myself thin. Letting go of busyness has also allowed me to embrace spontaneity. When your days aren't packed to the brim, you have the freedom to say yes to unexpected opportunities. A last-minute lunch with a friend, a spontaneous drive to the countryside, or simply an afternoon spent exploring a new hobby. Life feels lighter, more open, and more enjoyable when you're not bound by a rigid schedule. If there's one thing I've learned after 70, it's that time is our most precious resource. But the value of time isn't measured by how much you do. It's measured by how deeply you live. Staying busy for the sake of being busy can distract you from what truly matters: the relationships, moments, and experiences that bring you joy and fulfillment. So now I live my days with intention, not obligation. I focus on what feels right, not what looks productive. And in doing so, I've discovered a richness and depth to life that I never found in all my years of busyness. Letting go of these 5 things has made my 70s some of the best years of my life. By focusing on what truly matters, my health, relationships, and passions, I found a sense of peace and contentment that I didn't always have in my younger years. If you're nearing 70 or already there, I encourage you to reflect on what no longer serves you. Whether it's toxic people, unrealistic expectations, or the pressure to stay constantly busy, letting go can be incredibly freeing. Life is short, but it's also full of opportunities to find joy and fulfillment. Thank you for reading, and I hope these insights inspire you to embrace the next chapter of your life with grace and positivity. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this article, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thank you for reading, and here's to living life on your own terms.